Okay, so kind of continuing with this idea of gentle yoga, it's such a beautiful thing to have a class that slows down a little bit and gives us some time to really come into the body and into the mind in a very unique way. I think when we slow down, so many beautiful things happen. I don't know about you, but I've been walking a lot lately, and I didn't used to walk a lot. I would run, like efficiency. Got to get the aerobic exercise in, and I don't run anymore. And now I've been taking these walks, and suddenly, because I'm slowing down, I'm seeing so much more in my environment and in the way I feel in my body and even in my mind. Slowing down is a really, really helpful, beneficial thing. And I think this is one of the true gifts that are coming out of this pandemic is the art of slowing down, that so much of our culture is against. We don't value being slow, whether it's an exercise habit that has to be fast or a lifestyle that has to be busy or anything else. So savor your moments as best as you can, and including this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and sit up straight and tall and take a moment to close the eyes and welcome into your own being. Okay, just welcome into yourself. Take a welcoming breath. What does it feel like to be invited inside? Do you have a lot of self-care and self-respect? Can you cultivate some of that in your practice? We have a lot of forces that push into our thinking mind that are not necessarily self-care and self-respect. So let's just cultivate, plant little seeds, water them, tend them. Take your time to feel into your body, drop down through your torso, maybe all the way into the pelvis. I'm going to do some work with the hips today. So just notice, how are you sitting? Are you comfortable? Are you lopsided? Are you even? Of course, you're a little lopsided if you're sitting cross-legged because you can't be symmetrical. But just notice, is this where you always sit? So notice the imprint of your crossed legs, if that's how you're sitting. And let's take a moment to notice that and then change that. Cross the other way. So now everything's different. All right, so just notice the impact of having something that's not as familiar. What does the lack of familiarity do for your being? What state of alertness have you just come to that was different? And different sometimes means uncomfortable. But just notice if uncomfortable is difficult because it's painful, or if it's difficult just because it's different. Take a moment here. Notice, how does your pelvis feel? How does your stability feel being in a different way? Are you grounded? Are you not? It's okay, whatever your answer is. Can you feel the alignment of your spine without it losing its curves? Can you feel that you're spacious through your torso? The crown having just a slight uprightness, a meeting to the heavens. The eyes are soft and relaxed, the jaw free. And just come into the sensations of the breath. Does it feel good in your body to breathe? What's here in your mind today? What's here in your body? Let's bring our hands to our heart. Just take a moment to bow in, set an intention. And then let's release the hands and come off of our perch and onto our back. All right, So when we're working with the pelvis and the hips, just to make sure that's up, it's really important to notice, you know, a lot of people say that the hips are a big old storage depot of emotional states in the body. And of course, this can be true, but it can be true anywhere in your body. So for a moment, let's just lie down with our legs straight and just take a little recent history. What have your hips been doing for you? Have you been walking? Have you been sitting? Do you have hip pain? Do you have an injury, a past injury in the hip? Do you have a link with a knee issue that kind of affects your hip? Do you have a link with a low back issue that kind of affects your hip? How are the hip joints relating right now to your sacroiliac joints? So let's just take a moment to scan the body, feel the sensations of now, right now, but also feel the lineage that your hips have shared, at least just a more recent, maybe you're diving deep into the past, but just how have your hips been feeling? How do they feel right now with your legs straight on the floor? Can you feel whether you're tipped into one side of the pelvis more than the other? Do you tend to lean deeper left or lean deeper right? Can you sense whether one hip is hiked up higher toward the shoulders than at the other? Or do you feel a true sense of balance? So, you know, sometimes our interoception, our sensing of our inner space, is not always as accurate as we would like it to be. So the only way to get there is to pay attention and start really diving into the sensations of the body. And then our outer experience starts to match our inner experience the more we get to know the inner world. So let's start moving now. Stretch your arms overhead. Enjoy some spaciousness. Reaching the right, reaching the left. Just enjoy what it feels like to stretch, a little morning opening, maybe all the way into your hands and your feet. And then let's bring our knees into our chest and give yourself a little hug. Rock around a little bit. And just sway from left to right, feeling across the back edge of your pelvis, maybe the top rim of the pelvis. What does it feel like? And then let's do some circles. Knees stay together. We're circling our knees one direction. And then go ahead and circle the knees the other direction. So just pay attention. How are your hips moving today? Is there some slide and glide, or is there some hitches and snaps and cracks along the way? And now let's move our knees apart from each other and back in. And I don't know about you, but this gives me a little more information in my body about the state of my hips than just doing some knee circles. So just notice, how does your left feel? How does your right feel? Do you have a similar range of motion, or is it very different from one side to the other? And once again, notice the connection to your knee and notice the connection to your sacroiliac joints. Whenever you have working with a joint, it's nice to have the friendly relationship with the joint above and below. So just notice how the connections are. Is there a working relationship there, or has there been something that's interrupted that relationship due to injury or just habit? Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and keep the right knee into the chest. Bend your left knee and put your foot on the floor. So we're not worrying too much about extension yet in that left leg. I just want you to play around with where is your comfort zone. So as you bring your knee in toward your chest and then out toward your armpit, where's your comfort zone? So where's your favorite spot for your hip flexion? And do you have good hip flexion or not? Are you able to pull your knee toward your chest well? And if your knee doesn't like it, try bringing your hands behind your knee. So your knee doesn't have to have as much flexion. Sometimes we're asking the knee to do the flexion and the hip can't get there because the knee can't get there. So take away the knee flexion and just give to the hip. All right, and then relax that. So this is just a little bit of an exploration. Let's put our 2 feet on the ground and change sides. So you decide whether you want to hold behind the knee or in front of the shin, depending on how your knee is feeling, and experiment here. How is the compression in close to your chest? How about out a little further? Just play around with where your favorite nook is for your hip to flex. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a spot that feels best. All right, and then 2 knees now. Let's stretch straight. Find our starfish. Open things up. Arms and legs are wide. And then exhale, knees and chin come toward each other. Whole body flex. A couple of times here. Find the expansion. Open things up. Exhale, find the flexion. Chin up. Swirl in on yourself. One more time. Open things up. Starfish your body. Navel to tips. Exhale, drawing the chest in, the head in, the knees in. Let's roll over onto our side and come up onto our hands and our knees. So as you find cat-cow, let's just start to know, what does it feel like to play with your spine a little bit? So arching and rounding. Pay attention. How is it that your spine's moving today? Do you have a lot of freedom? Are you stiff? Did you just roll out of bed before class, or have you been up for hours? And how has that impacted the way your body's moving? All right, now I know that you guys have all done this, but let's repeat a little bit. We're gonna first just take some pelvic circles. So imagine you have a paintbrush on your tailbone. We're going to try to draw big, wide circles on the wall behind us. There are a ton of ligaments that connect your sacrum to your ilium, your pelvis, okay? And there's a ton of ligaments that attach your spine to the top of your pelvis, your lumbar spine to the top of your pelvis. So just start to free some of that up. All right, and then go the other direction. Notice the low back. This is so good to start loosening the low back a little bit. And of course, the hips and the back are interrelated with each other. All right, and then come to a flat back. And now we're going to get into the hips themselves a little bit more, the hip joints. So our circles are going to be on the floor instead of the wall behind you. Imagine that your belly button is the paintbrush, and you're just trying to create this big, wide of a circle on the floor as you can. So we're not arching the back and kind of dropping our belly. Keep stable through your spine. You can engage your core a bit. Just see what you can feel through the hips as you push the hip out to the side, back toward the heels, out to the other side, and up. Or maybe you're going in the other direction. Okay, but whatever direction you're going, switch now. Go the other way. Just enjoy what it feels like to open up the sides of the hips. All right, now we'll come to a flat back, and we're just going to sway. So I'll show you from the front. Sway your hips as far out to the side as what's comfortable for you. So a little stability with your upper body here. And then coming back and sway your hips out the other way. Just notice the difference between the two. One more time each side. Perhaps you like to move faster than this, and that's okay. If you want to be a little more quick. All right, and then come to a flat back, anterior tilt the pelvis. So lift the sit bones high and wide. Draw the femur bones back in the hip joints and come down to rest in child's pose. And this is obviously a huge flexion pose in your hips. So just take stock. Where are you with flexion here today? Relax your head down, soften the body. And as you're ready, let's walk the hands over to the left side of the mat, opening the rib cage up and breathing. Relax the base of the skull. Notice the full body now. So, we can kind of burrow into one little part of the body sometimes, and we forget to see the forest instead of just the tree. So open the breath up, feel crown to tail. And then come back around to the other side. Stretch open, and remember, if your knees don't flex, you can still flex your hips, even if your knees don't bend all the way back. So if you're high, if your hips are not toward your heels, still have that deep anterior tilt of the pelvis where you can, flex the hip joints, even if the knee pockets in the back need to be a little bit more open. All right, and then come back to center. Come up onto all fours. Let's find a twist. Lift the left arm up in the air, exhale, and slide that shoulder down. Move the shoulders away from the ears. Deepen your breath. Gaze toward the floor. Feel a sense of surrender through the neck as much as you can. Deep breath into the back ribs. And then inhale and lift that arm all the way to the sky. Change sides. Okay, find your breath. Bring the hand down. Gaze toward the floor. Find the back body. Breathe into the back body. All right, and then go ahead and lift that arm all the way up to the sky again. Place the hand down. Let's find our way to dog pose. Open up your feet. So pedal out your feet. Feel free to sway a little bit. Feel free to drop one heel, bend the opposite knee. Just open up the full back line, starting with your feet, and then lift. Stretch through your calves, lift the sit bones high and wide. Feel a sense of width across the hamstrings and length across the hamstrings. Inner spiral your thighs. Feel that rooting back of the femur bones in the hip joints. Lengthen through your spine, heart up toward the pelvis. Relax your eyes, your jaw, melt the face as best as you can. Find your breath over and over. All right, and then let's walk our feet forward, come into Uttanasana. Fold and half a little bit. Inhale for a halfway lift. Hold very top of your thighs, right at the root of your hips, as close as you can get. Put the heels of your hands in there and stretch the spine. Roll open the feet, spread out the bones. Exhale and melt and fold again. Back can soften, knees can soften. Inhale, rise up. Arms coming to the sky. Open the chest. Spread out your wings. Exhale and round in. Lift up. Arms to the sky. Exhale, fold in half. Inhale for a halfway lift. Thighs are back, shins are forward. Exhale and melt again. Let's go ahead and bring our left foot back. Come into a lunge. Now we get to feel some extension. We haven't done much extension yet in the hips, so feel the extension of the back leg. Open the chest forward, stretch through your spine. Just enjoy that. We're going to find a twist here. Either bring your hand onto your hip or knee, or bring your hand up in the air, whichever you're feeling. Try not to let this hip sink down. Keep lifting the femur bone of the back leg, opening wide, shoulders away from the ears, stretch through the back heel. And then release the hands down onto the ground. If you have blocks, blocks are nice. And let's start to begin some movement here. Squaring the hips, relaxing the head down, opening the back leg, the back of the front leg, and just kind of going back and forth, feeling movement, feeling breath. All right, now to get a little deeper into the extension of the back leg, place your knee down. Toes can lay flat or curl under, whichever is best for you. Find the lift through your spine. Hug your front heel and the back knee toward each other on the mat so that there's a sense of connection between your two legs, that you're not falling, that you're not letting the pelvis fall into the floor. Reach your arms up. Feel that engagement of the hug between the back knee and the front heel. Reach and extend. Drop the tailbone, lift the pubic bone toward the belly button to help open up that hip. Grab onto the wrist, find some extension through the side, feel your breath. So we're holding the left wrist and stretching. Try not to get it in the shoulder. Find the stretch all the way through the hip flexors. And then release the hands down onto the ground. Lift your back knee up off the ground. Walk your back foot forward. Settle. Let the hips settle from that extension. Inhale for a halfway lift. You can hold your blocks, thighs or shins. Exhale and melt back down. Let's step your other foot back. So now our left foot is forward, our right foot is back. There's extension through the back leg. Find your breath here. Full breaths, just enjoy it. Enjoy opening up. What does it feel like? How is this side different than the other side? Start exploring your sense of symmetry or not. Hug to the midline with your inner thighs so there's some activity in your legs. And we're going to take a twist here. So the hand can be on the block or the floor. Your hand can be on the knee or the hip or up in the air, whichever you're feeling. Try not to drop the hip down. Keep lifting your back femur bone, your right femur bone, up toward the sky as you twist. Find your breath. And then let's release the hand down onto the ground. Put your knee on the floor. Find your breath. Actually, let's just do some movement first. So square the hips. Let's start moving. Inhale, bend your front knee, or exhale and bend your front knee. Whatever you're doing, keep the breath flowing. Remember to tuck the chin. This gives that extra bit of length through the back of the body. Your sciatic nerve is a really giant nerve that passes underneath a lot of muscles in right below your buttocks, and getting those free a little bit along with the full back line through the spine can really help give the sciatic nerve some room. All right, let's go ahead and place the knee down now. Inhale, feel that connection of front heel and back knee finding their way. Extend, open, and remember, if flexion, deep flexion is hard for you, get off your knees so that you don't have to flex very deeply in this hip. So if going deep is hard, find a way to back off from that. Feel and extend, open, reach, find the breath. Try not to pull at the shoulder joint, but extend from the waist, from the hip. So don't think so far over. We're just trying to get up and open. Deep breaths here. And then release the hands down onto the ground. Let's step back to a plank. Your hands are on the ground. You can always put your knees on the floor. Just have a moment of full body support and strength, feeling that sense of stability, shoulders away from the ears. Welcome in your core. Find the strength that lives there. And then put your knees down. And let's very slowly lower ourselves to the ground. Take a deep breath. Open up to a back bend, stretch open. Exhale and release. Before you come up again, lift the right leg and stretch it long. Lift the left leg, stretch it long. Feel your hands come down. Put your head on your hands. Engage through your core. So feel your transverse abdominis. Stabilize your low back so that when you lift your leg, you're not collapsing your lumbar spine into the floor. Take a breath. We're going to lift the left leg first. Deep stability in the center body. And just feel some extension through the hip. Lengthen through the spine. And then exhale and melt that down. Change sides. Lift the other leg. Head can be resting on the floor. Stable through the center body. Exhale and lay that leg back down. Feel the extension through the front of the hips. Tailbone toward the back edge of your mat. Pubic bone lifting toward the belly button. Inhale, both hips get to extend now. Stretch your chest open in cobra pose. Exhale and melt back down. Come up onto all fours. Choose whatever's going to free your back. Maybe you like some circles. Maybe you like a cat-cow. Anything that's helpful to you. Lift yourself up to dog pose when you're ready. Root into the index fingers. Let's sway our hips again here. So bend your right knee and lift your left hip high. Then bend your opposite knee and lift the hip high. Find your breath. Walk your feet forward. This time we're going to take our feet wider to the edges of the mat and come to a forward fold here. When we come up, we're going to come to squat, just warming up all the muscles around our hip joints again. Now remember, your squat can be high. So, your squat might look like this. Your squat might look like this. Okay, so anywhere along that path is good. Whatever flexion your hips can tolerate. So everybody's different in what kind of action they're capable of in their hip joint. But whatever you're doing, whether you're low or high, draw the femur bones back. See what you can do to find that sense of stabilizing the femur bones toward the pelvis. And then notice what your low back is doing. Is it deeply arched? Is it rounded? See if you can find a neutral spine here, no matter how deep you're going into your squat. Find your breath. Feel your feet spread out the bones. What muscles are holding you here? And then we're going to push like we're pushing, like we weigh 5 times as much as we weigh. Go ahead and push your feet off the floor. So see what muscles have to work so slow, like you're very, 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 very heavy as you inhale and lift yourself up to stand. Reach the arms to the sky. Okay. And then go ahead and grab a block. Let's go ahead and come to the long edge of our mat. We're going to flow here a little bit. Sometimes our hips need movement. Now remember all the things you know about standing poses. It's okay to turn the pelvis. It's okay not to bend the knee very much. So you play within the playground that your pelvis, your hips have. Don't go further. Don't color outside the lines, but meet your lines. Okay, so you can have your arms doing whatever you want them to do. But I want you to bend and straighten the knee a little bit. Just getting used to the flexion and rotation that's required for these externally rotated standing poses. All right, and then let's go ahead and settle. And where are you? Is your knee caving in? Can you track the knee in line with the middle toes? It's okay if your knee is before your ankle or on top of your ankle. Try not to go way past your ankle. Once you have where you're going to be, the perfect spot for your hip and knee to feel happy, can you feel the rotation in your hip joint? Externally rotate the hip. This can be helped by spinning the heel. So with your right heel, take your right heel toward the left and your right toes toward the right, isometrically. And let this turn on a lot of muscles underneath your glutes to help you rotate the femur bone in the hip joint. Find your body, find your breath. How's the back hip? Can you let it roll a little bit? Can you take the femur bone back? So sometimes the extension is harder than the flexion. Sometimes the flexion is harder than the extension. So just notice where your body lives. Let's go ahead and come on up. Turn your feet the other way. And let's just warm up this side. Okay, so just little bits of movement. There's not a whole lot we do during the day that externally rotates our, most of our movements, we either have our legs crossed or we're in line. It's very rare that we turn our hips out through the day. So, think about all the movements you do during the day. There's not all that much that requires us to roll our hip joints around a lot. So this is good. Yoga is good for this. So just find some movements, whatever feels comfortable. Play with where your edge is. Do you have a knee that bothers you when you come into flexion? Do you have a hip? So what's here? Where can you find stability? If you did some of the classes last week where we had a block against something, this can be very stabilizing for the knee so you can get into the hip. So maybe you want to try that. All right, and then let's settle wherever that is. Your Viratu could look like this, where your knee is just a little bent. Okay, your Viratu could look much deeper. So just know, where is the plane where your knee feels supported, your hip feels supported, the pelvis feels like it can be in the angle that's best for you. Take the femur bone back, this back leg, let the leg extend without hyperextending the knee. How is it feeling? Do you have a tug of war going on between the two sides? Can you find harmony and balance? Bring your arms wherever you want. So remember, this knee does not need to bend very much. The knee can come into deep bend. So you find where you are in space that's most stable. Relax the shoulders, finding your breath. Spin your foot. So remember, now with our left foot, toes go left, heel goes right. What turns on? What do you feel inside of yourself when you do that action? What do you feel in your hip? Let's go ahead and come on up. Find a little different rotation, so a little inner spiral of your thighs, lengthen the spine, and fold in half. So the inner spiral is really good to soothe the back. It's very connected to how your sacrum and your lumbar spine kind of settle themselves. But it's also good to challenge the external rotation sometimes and get the mobility, the full range of mobility that we're able to have. Let's go ahead and come on up. Okay. Back to our first side. Let's just come into that state of movement again. Finding the breath. All right, and then when we come down, we're going to bring our elbow. Now this sometimes makes us slouch, makes us lose the stability in our lower legs. So, and just kind of lean into them. So try not to lean anywhere.
Feel self-supporting, extend through the spine, reach the arm overhead. Now see if you can sense all the stability we just worked on the front leg with your foot spinning and all that. But now feel the extension through the back leg. How open can you get this hip to feel? Turn it in as much as you need to, and then take the femur bone back. Be very mindful that you're moving this action from the hip joint instead of from the knee joint. Open your breath. Can you spin your foot on that front foot? Give a lot of strength to the external rotation in the front leg. All right, then go ahead and come on up. And let's switch to the other side. Just pause for a moment. How are your hips feeling? Are they feeling like you're opening them? Getting some, stretching the boundary of where your range of motion naturally lives. So find your place. Maybe it's up high, maybe it's down low. Place the elbow. And if you're high, the elbow might be like the wrong angle. If you're not bent very much, bring your hand here. Pose can look like this. Find your breath. Extend that arm in the air. If it's comfortable, shoulders are away from the ears. Feel the extension of the back leg. Connect the heel all the way through to the crown. Feel the stability of the front leg. Both legs are stable, but feel what it feels like to find that external rotation in the front hip. This hip, so spin the foot. Right toes go right. Left toes go left, left toes go right. Find the breath. All right, and then let's go ahead and come on up. Heel toe your feet in. Okay, so turn the toes out just a little bit. And when we come into these moving goddess postures, try not to be extreme and see what it feels like to have that sense of yielding, that we're yielding and then heavy, we have to push ourselves off with just a little bit extra work. We're gonna do this in just some regular squats in a moment instead of turned out. So your squats could be right here, just a little tiny movement. This might be what your hips want today. Maybe you're going much deeper. Notice if you have a knee that gives way on one side. So if you have a knee injury, make sure your stronger side is connecting with where the more less stable side needs to be. Okay, instead of just leaning into a dominance. Breathing. All right. Let's heel toe your feet in. And we're going to just do the same thing with some classic squats. So feet are hip width apart. And you're just going to go where you go. So once again, notice if you tend to lean into a dominant side. Try to back off the pose and go so slow. Remember, we're moving slowly in the body. So try to feed the side that has a history of or shadow of an injury or a weakness or an instability. See if you can lead with that side so that you really know what teach yourself to be stable there instead of just always leaning on the side that's more stable. So that might mean very little movements, just the teeniest bit of knee bends. That might mean that you're going into some pretty deep squats. If you've had an ankle, foot, knee, or hip, or SI joint injury in the past, chances are you have a tendency, like I have a knee issue, and I tend to lean into my dominant side. So all the little ways that you squat through the day, see if you can give to the side that you have a history of, just enough. Okay, so just wherever you go. All right, let's go ahead. Reach the arms up to the sky. Exhale and fold forward. Halfway lift, the spine grows. Exhale and melt back down. Step back to dog pose. Curl your toes under, the spine gets longer. Roll the triceps under, the biceps come smiling toward the sky. Feel the extension, full body pose here. Relax the face, find your exhales. And then inhale, come forward into a plank. What's here? What can you find that's stable? Breathe. All right, and then let's put our knees down. slowly come to the floor. Slide over to the right side of your mat, bring your left knee up high. Come into some pretty deep hip flexion wherever your body is capable of going, wherever your deep place is. And then if you're able to, take your hands out wide on the mat, far out in front of you, and feel a little bit of a back bend. Stretch into the extension of the back leg. Remember to strengthen your core while you do this. So your pose might be very low. Okay. All right, and then release and relax. Turn this into a twist. Roll over toward your back. Lift the arm open. Find the breath. And then come back around. Again, let's change sides. Onto the belly. Now our left knee is coming up wherever it naturally goes. If you're able to do a back bend here, great. If you need to be on the floor, that's awesome too. This is a big pose for your back. So if you have trouble with stabilizing your core, this is very deep hip flexion in order to create this. So if your hip doesn't flex well, don't lift your torso up. Stay low and just work with trying to get the hip open a little bit. Okay, and then come on down. Let's go ahead and slide into a twist on this side. Okay, open your chest, let the knee leave the floor. Deep breaths in and away. All right, and then let's go ahead and roll on back. Come back to child's pose. Have your knees close or far. Maybe child's pose doesn't feel good and you'd rather be on all fours where there's a little less hip flexion, and do some circles and sways. Finding the breath. Okay, so we're going to come up onto your knee. Let's come up onto your right knee with your left leg straight out in front of you. So half Hanumasana. You can be with some blocks. I sometimes need more height than the blocks, so I like to stack one block underneath like this and the other on top so that I have a little higher stability. You can also use furniture really well for this. So if you have a chair or a couch or a table or something that you'd rather use. So since I have the table, I'm going to have the table on one side and the blocks on the other. Okay, so half Hanumasana. Drop the hip down. Reach through your heart. So I'm on my back knee. Find your breath. And now I'm going to twist a little bit to the left. So if your hands are on the blocks, you can hold one block and twist this way. So a lot of stretch in the IT band. Try not to drop the hip and hike the hip out, or drop this hip and hike this hip out. See if you can settle the left hip down, lift the spine, and twist. Stretch through the big toe and the inner heel. And let's come back around. Go ahead and change sides. So half Hanumasana on the other side. Okay, so our right foot is forward, our left knee is on the floor, our shin is back. You can curl your toes under or lay them flat. Furniture is great. Lift through the spine. Draw the femur bone back into the hip joint. Flex through the toes. Try to stretch through the big toe instead of collapsing the foot. Feel the reach of the spine. And then when you're ready, let's twist. Imagine that you have a weight hanging off your right sit bone. Is there an inner spiral of your right thigh? Is your knee solid and not hyperextended? Find the breath. Stretch through the big toe and the inner heel. Keep the spine growing as you twist. Full inhale, full exhale. All right, and then let's go ahead and come out of there. And let's come onto our back. You need a blanket. Come to sit on your blanket. Soles of the feet are together. We're going to bring them close in for Supta Baddha Konasana. I think most of you have done this with me, but this is called PNF stretching, or proprio-neuromuscular facilitation. That's what it stands for. Basically, we're just tricking our body into surrendering a little bit. So if we have effort against the stretch in the beginning and then release it, the This will help lengthen the muscle fibers. And also the fascia, the soft tissue in the body really starts to get some feedback in this. So hands or elbows or whatever you got are gonna press into the inner thighs or close to the knees wherever you are. Okay, so if you can get your elbows there, that's fine. If your hands are there, that's fine. Find your breath, extend your spine, come forward just a little bit, and now press your upper body, your arms, hands, whatever's pressing into the inner thighs or inner knees. And then push your knees up against that resistance. So find the meeting of the two. Breathe here, try not to hold your breath, and then relax that and open up a little bit more. And then repeat. Now pay attention. How are your sacroiliac joints feeling in this? How obviously there's a lot of rotation in the hip joints happening. So how does that feel? Are you being safe in the body? Have a little resistance, meeting bone against bone. And then surrender that and just see if you've eked out a little bit more openness. Okay, and then find where that set point is now. Bring your hands behind you. Sometimes if I'm up high on a blanket, I need blocks underneath my hands, or maybe your hands come to the floor. So wherever you are, open up into Baddha Konasana. And you might notice that one knee is a lot higher than the other, and that's okay. Try to meet the higher knee. So if you feel tippy, lift the lower knee to meet and match the higher knee. All right, let's relax. Melt that. Bring the knees into the chest and give yourself a little nurturing hug. Just let the inner thighs soften, bow in. We're going to repeat that, but with our legs much further away. So feet are now not close to our body. We have them moving away from us. We create like a diamond shape in between our knees. And now we're just going to come forward. And you can do the same thing. Have a little PNF stretch, a little resistance, bone against bone. And this might feel good. This might kind of scratch a deep itch in your hip joint. You know, if you've had tension in your hip joint, having a little flexion in this kind of rotation can be really nice. And then relax that and fold and have a little bit more. See if you go a little deeper. And don't worry about, don't have the goal be deeper, but just notice where your body opens to. And now notice, do you have difference between your two sides? Chances are one hip's a lot tighter. So try to match the tighter hip. Don't let the looser hip get away from you. Go ahead and come on up and bring your knees into the chest again. If reverse pigeon pose or pigeon pose tends to irritate your sacroiliac joints, you know, that extreme opposition that tends to happen in pigeon pose, if that's the case, what we just did, this stretch here, is a really nice way to get into that same muscle group of the piriformis, the external rotators underneath your glutes, without kind of messing with your sacrum as much. So this is a nice, safe way of opening up some of those muscles if kind of going from, you know, extreme extension and extreme flexion in opposition to each other bothers you. Okay, so let's come on to our back. We're going to get up on the edge of a blanket or two. You decide how high you want to be, a long fold of the blanket. And lie on your back with the blanket underneath you. Okay. So first, just nurture the feeling across your sacrum. We are going to do some extension in our hips in a moment just to free things up, but just a teeny bit more rotation and flexion. So cross the right thigh really high. Try to get high thigh over high thigh instead of, you know, more at the knees. So sometimes you have to like pull your leg pretty far high to get your thighs to cross. And then pick up your knees and bring them on in. And experiment. You know, if you have a hip that gets a little curmudgeonly about this, what does it feel like to move your knees left, to move your knees right, to find just a sweet spot of where the flexion can be comfortable. And that might mean you don't get really deep in. You might be here instead of knees really close to the chest. You can hold on anywhere. So if you want to have more rotation and you have the capacity, you can grab your feet and pull your feet toward your shoulders. And this will rotate the hips more. If that's too much, which it is for a lot of us, you can grab on the shins or the knees or even the backs of the thighs. Find your breath. Find the ease in your shoulders. And then unwind the legs. Have a moment of stretching both legs straight for just a moment. We're going to do a little more of this in a bit. Just one blanket underneath you. Hopefully it's not too much for your spine. Okay. Let's go ahead and put your feet back down onto the ground. Cross the other thigh over. So remember, lift that knee high and over so that you get your thighs out of the way so you can have a good cross. So you don't want to have like a measly cross. You want to have a good strong cross of the thighs, and then knees kind of come in. So once again, if you want to hold your ankles or your feet, this is a much more, there's a lot more rotation in the hip joints when you do this. So this may not be for everybody, but you might really like this. So just see where your body's at. And if that's not working for you, grab anywhere along the pathway. So holding your knees, holding your shins, holding the backs of your legs. So just experiment with what feels best in your body. And once again, do you like your knees to be kind of, it's good to try to have them be in line with the spine, like knees right in line with the center of the body. But perhaps your hip needs you to sway left a little bit or sway right a little bit. So experiment with, just like we did in the beginning of class, where the nestling of your hip joint is most comfortable. And then we're going to unwind that. Bring the knees toward the chest. And now just a couple of moments of drawing the knees apart. We're still on the blanket with our pelvis. And we're going to lift our legs straight up in the air. All right, so settle. And you can be on the long side of a block for this too, if you prefer that, or just stay on your blanket. We're going to we're going to open our legs out to the sides, like turn our legs into the letter V. But before you do that, get really heavy again. So make your femur bones 5 times heavier than they are and drop them into the pelvis. It's like sand is being poured, cement is being poured into your bones. Heavy, heavy, heavy. And then once you get that feeling of rooting, you can open up your legs. Now, you can hold your legs with your hands. That can be very supportive, or maybe you just want to be hanging out in space. We don't have a wall that we're against. This is nice to do against a wall, but so you therefore support yourself in whatever way you need. Just let the inner thighs stretch a little bit. Extend the spine, stretch through the feet. And then bend the knees and come on in. Happy baby pose, still on the edge of a blanket. So we're letting the blanket kind of tip our pelvis. And that's going to be the end of the flexion. So now we're going to move to some extension. Allow the left knee to either left foot on the floor, or you can draw the knee in a little bit just so you have a little bit more capacity for extension through that leg. Now, when your right leg stretches straight, perhaps if you feel nothing, stick a little bit more height underneath you. Maybe try a block instead of a blanket, or stick another blanket on top of this blanket or a pillow or something. So just so you feel some pretty good extension through that leg. Find your breath. And then release and relax that. Let's stretch our left leg joined. So 2 legs together now. Maybe find the breath. Stretch your arms overhead. And if you happen to go higher, if you're now on a block, and just see, are you capable of doing this, or is it too high when both legs are out? All right, now we're going to keep the right leg where it's at, bend the left knee so our left foot can come on the floor. If you did the other side before, that's fine. So just find can't remember which side we did. My one hip hurts, so I can never tell. All right, so make sure you're doing the opposite side. All right, you can bring the knee in and stretch the leg straight. Find the breath, extend through the spine. Feel free to notice what's here in the hip flexors. So it's okay if you don't flex very much, but you can keep the knee on the floor or the foot on the floor. You can bring the knee higher. Just see what is necessary for you to feel the extension through the hip flexors. Deep breaths. And then go ahead and relax that leg. 2 feet now onto the ground. So any support that you want underneath you, we're not going to overly stretch anything. Just going to nestle into a supported bridge and let your body rest here. Find symmetry through the pelvis. Feel a sense of dropping, letting the body rest in the posture. So feel the support below you. Deep breaths in, deep breaths away. We're going to lift our hips up, take the block or blanket out from underneath there. We're going to come back to our flat, long blanket, and we're going to put our feet up on it. So you might need some more support than this. So it could look like this. It could look like a bolster if you have one, or 2 blankets. It could be that high. Sometimes if you feel like your feet are sliding, you can do this with your feet right, with the blankets right up against the wall so your feet don't have anywhere to go. We're gonna get our pelvis close to the blankets, and our feet are coming up. So I get support underneath my shins and a little bit underneath my knees when I do this. My blankets are thick enough for that. So just see what's available for you. So just a little bit different variation of Supta Baddha Konasana. You can do this with the strap with your legs bound. I prefer to not bind these days. So if you feel like you need to move yourself, this edge of the table might be enough for me, where I can just make my toes touch the edge of my chair here. And you can do this against the wall. Having something to meet your toes to, your feet to, is nice because you can really relax. You don't have to feel like you have to hold your legs in. If you are choosing to do a strap instead, you know, you can either just hold the strap, which is just a way of cheating, or you can go to the full variation. I've kind of stepped away from doing this in my practice some. It tends to be a little too much for me, but it may not be for you. So you can take the loop strap behind your back and over top your ankles, like a very classic way of doing Supta Baddha Konasana, and come down, and you don't need a wall then because the strap is supporting you. So the strap's behind your sacrum, not in your low back, over your inner thighs, and tucked around the outside, over your ankles, and tucked around the pinky toes. So you have to have a strap that binds, you know, scarf. I guess you could tie it into a knot, but really it's just much easier to bring your body to the wall. So once you're here, bound or not bound by a strap, see what it feels like to rest, to be supported. So if you need more support than this, you can take blocks underneath your knees or anywhere you need so that you can rest. You can be restful in this pose. Now, one of the things that the strap, one of the reasons why I'm not preferring the strap for my body anymore is it tends, even when I have it low on the sacrum, it tends to, like I feel an overarch in my lumbar spine, just ever so slightly, and that doesn't help me. So it helps some people. If you tend to posterior tilt and you need an anterior tilt support, that can be very helpful. So everybody's different in what kind of support they need. to be at ease in a posture like this. So mess around until you get it just right for you. And take some breaths, relax here. See if you can feel the openness across your pelvis. Are your hips supported enough in their rotation? Can you melt? Are you able to breathe? Is your breath traveling deep in your body? How often do you allow yourself to just rest, to just be? Lose that sense of doing, slow yourself down into the being. Observe your breath. We're going to find our way into a supported Shavasana. So you want to make sure that you have some support underneath your knees today. If you want to put your legs up a couch, you can do that too. If that's too much flexion for your hips, just find some ease. So if you're bound with the strap, you need to take it off. If you're against a wall, get away from it so that you can stretch your legs out. I wouldn't do leg up the wall pose right now, unless that's just what your body's asking for. We've done a lot of flexions. I just want you to be very neutral in the pelvis right now. So once you settle, if there's any last little things you need to ease your hips, do that, or anywhere else in your body. Find your breath and take some time to find comfort. Relax, surrender your body. Are you able to melt your bones? Are you able to relax? Can you feel your breath traveling to the pelvis?
And slowly begin to deepen our breathing. Deep full inhale. Long steady exhale. Let's just take a moment to stretch and move. Anything that feels good. And as you're ready, come onto your side. Come up to sit. Take a moment to find your seat. Breathe deeply. Place your hands at your heart and bow in. Offer your energy. Send your prayers outward, your love, your care. Namaste. I hope you all have a wonderful day.